Well, good day to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today, and congratulations to the Swiss Legal Technology team and everybody in Switzerland and throughout Europe looking at legal technology, whether it's to deliver greater access to justice, whether it's to deliver greater efficiency, whether it's to deliver greater profitability. All of those are very good reasons to be thinking about legal technology. And I wanted to talk today about the future of law, justice, and everything. Now, as many of you will know, that is a title from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a book by Douglas Adams, which spoke about the prediction of or the determination of the answer to the universal question of life, the universe, and everything. And those of you who've read the book will remember that after a millennia of the fastest supercomputer in the world determining the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything, the computer delivered the answer, and the answer was 42. And the people said, well, we don't understand the answer. Are you sure? And the computer said, yes, I'm absolutely sure that that's the answer. But are you sure that you know what the question is? And the people said, well, what is the question? And the computer said, well, I'm simply not powerful enough to be able to tell you what the question is. You'll have to build an even more powerful computer. And I think sometimes when people talk about legal technology, that it's seen as this panacea. You know, it's people talk in the same way about what color blockchain they should have. They don't really understand the difference between law tech and legal tech, about systemic change versus organizational efficiency. They don't know the difference between automation and transformation. They just talk to legal tech and law tech. And to some extent, we have to take ourselves back to say, what's the question? What question are we asking ourselves? What problem are we trying to solve? Because we know the answer, I think, is that legal technology is going to be incredibly important. But for many people, we're not too sure how, why, and when. And you may say, well, we don't have sufficient computing power to be able to determine the question right now. I think, you know, that's probably not right. If one looks at the announcement last year by Google of the commercialization of quantum computing, and this beautiful, what looks like a chandelier, but is the Sycamore processor, and that takes us to a whole new realm of computing power. From memory, I think it's that it handles 10,000 years of processing for the latest, most modern supercomputer today. 10,000 years of processing power it can do in 200 seconds. We are now moving into a new age of technology, a new age of processing power. Some would say the end of privacy, because traditional encryption methods rely on computers not being able to hack them. And that was always the way with today's supercomputers. But when you can do 10,000 years of processing in 200 seconds, what does that mean for all of our previously encrypted data, bank accounts, personal information, emails, and even WhatsApp messages? So we are entering a new era of computing power. And what relevance will that have for the legal field? And I want to explore that there are people, you know, and I was on a panel yesterday with a minister of justice and someone from a sort of one of those global bodies that offers their opinions to governments about the future. And there are many, many arguments that they put forward for not changing the legal system, for not changing the justice system, you know, the stability, the backbone, all of these very important arguments. And I want to analyze, I want to break those down for you, and I want us to explore whether they actually make sense. You know, what are the arguments for not incorporating technology into justice, the legal system, and even law firms? Well, they tend to break down into 3 points. The first point is people say, well, technology isn't advanced enough yet. You know, it isn't clever enough yet to understand the complexities of law and justice. You know, it might be good at you know, games, and it might be good at emails, but you know, the legal system is a very different, complicated thing. Technology simply isn't advanced enough. The second argument people put for maintaining the status quo is that even if technology is advanced enough to deal with traditional communications and ways of interacting with each other and the like, the law itself is too complicated. Contracts are too complicated. The reasonableness test is something that's too hard for a computer, or to understand the complexity of good faith. These are challenges for computers, and we don't expect them to have mercy. We don't expect them to be able to be judicial. And the third argument that's put forward is that people don't trust computers. They trust humans. They want human lawyers and human judges, because people don't trust computers to determine something as important as the law and justice. So the three arguments that are put forward: technology isn't advanced enough yet, the law is too complicated in any event for technology to do it justice, and people don't trust computers. Now, there are many, many other arguments that people put forward, but they tend to fall into those three buckets when you distill them down. So taking each of those in turn, where are we today? Well, in terms of technology and its power, I think a good example is the Stockfish 9, I think it is now, may even be Stockfish 10 and AlphaZero. Stockfish 9 was the compilation of every recorded chess move. Every chess move that's ever been played and has been recorded, be it online, be it the Grandmasters, I mean, millions, tens of millions of chess moves, all put into a very, very powerful computer. A computer so powerful that it was unbeatable, because it could see so many hundreds of moves ahead, because it had every single permutation of every move that had ever been played in its memory banks. It was the most phenomenal chess computer, and a triumph, really, of computing, assimilating all of human knowledge of chess, all of human experience of chess, into one platform, which was unbeatable. Google had developed a computer system to play the game of Go, and they decided they wanted to wipe that clean, and they started with something called AlphaZero, because it had nothing in it. And all that they did was they gave AlphaZero the rules of chess. So it didn't have hundreds of years of games that had been played. It had no human experience. It had nothing. It just had the rules of chess. So we have the greatest repository of human experience versus some silicon and some electrodes which have been given the rules of chess. It'll come as no surprise that it took AlphaZero, I think, about 4 hours to master chess and to start beating Stockfish, I think at the time, 8. Stockfish was reprogrammed. They tried again with Stockfish 9. AlphaZero beat it again. And what that tells us now is that we're at a point where computers with very limited amounts of information are able to think sufficiently well that they can expose any flaws in the framework of human experience and to do better than almost every other chess player in the history of chess where their moves have been recorded. So we're certainly at a stage, even pre the Sycamore processor, of technology starting to go beyond human ability. The second element, or the second component that people talk about, is language. People say that computers are going to struggle with language. And that, I think, was always true. Comprehension. So rather than the ability of computers to read and understand what the words meant, that's been going around for some time. The challenge has been around comprehension. Can computers comprehend meaning? Can they read a paragraph or a chapter and truly understand the nuances of this chapter? And I think until quite recently, computers would struggle with that. They struggled with nuance. So Alibaba set itself the challenge, and it took on the Stanford reading test, which is reading, writing, comprehension. It's a test of experience in language, and it started to perform so well it was outdoing humans taking the test. So we are almost certainly at a point now where computers are able to comprehend language, to understand nuance. And then we come on to the second, if you will, objection, which is, oh, but the law's different. You know, contracts are much more complicated. Words in a contract may have such important legal meanings like good faith or reasonableness. And computers would never be able to cope with that. There's something perhaps sacrosanct about contracts. And that brings us on to the Law Geeks analysis, where Law Geeks gave a group of lawyers some documents to review, and they gave the same documents to a piece of machine learned, a piece of technology, and they asked the lawyers and the technology to identify problems in the contracts, to identify issues in the contracts, and to report back. And the lawyers did an absolutely fantastic job. You know, they were good lawyers and they worked hard on it. And on average, they were 85% accurate. You know, they picked up 85% of the problems. And that's, you know, given they were under pressure, that's maybe not so bad. You know, people can't be expected to pick up everything, right? So the lawyers did all right, 85% accurate. But the computer was 92% accurate. So more accurate than the lawyers. I think more significantly, on average, the lawyers took, I think, about an hour and a half to review all of the papers, maybe slightly more. But the computer was able to do it in 26 seconds. So we're entering a world, and this was a few years ago, we're entering a world in which computers are able to outthink, if you will, human experience, where they can comprehend better than humans, and where they can review contracts, not only more accurately, but much faster than lawyers. The last objection that people raise is trust. And before I come on to that, I wanted to share with you a light-hearted story about how intelligent computers were. This is Promobot. This is a Russian artificially intelligent computer. If I go back to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, this is Marvin, the paranoid android. Because Marvin, although incredibly intelligent, was given the most mundane tasks of going around conference centers and handing out brochures and promoting. And it was so mundane, it was so boring for the computer, which was far cleverer than the task given to it, that it tried to escape. This is it crossing the road. It tried to escape the conference and the mundane nature of its work. And when the police brought the computer back to the conference, it tried to escape again. Now, you may say it was a computer error. Many would say that computers are becoming so clever now that they can even work out when the jobs that they're doing are boring and mundane and trivial and beneath them, and they choose to leave. So coming back to trust, I think the best example of whether people trust technology is the emergency guide robot. This was an experiment done at a US university. Students were asked to take part in a test. They had no idea. They thought the test was a paper-based test. And they signed up and they were shown into, one by one, shown into a corridor. And what met them in the corridor was the emergency guide robot. And they were told, look, this is an emergency guide robot, but the robot will show you to the room where you're going to take the test. And the robot was hopeless. It was completely hopeless, not because it was a robot, but because actually there was a student behind the scenes controlling the robot, and the robot banged into the wall. The robot went past the room where they were meant to be. The robot was absolutely a disaster when it came to showing them to where they needed to be. And so they entered the room and started the test knowing that the robot was fairly hopeless. Then in the experiment, the experimenter started to pump smoke into the corridor. So the smoke started to come under the door of the room in which the students were sitting the test. And after a while, they realized that they should leave because there was smoke pouring under the door. So they opened the door, and there was the emergency guide robot. And the emergency guide robot, the white neon lights above its head, were pointing to the direction for the emergency exit. And even though there was a sign behind the robot showing emergency exit, let's say to the left, the robot was steering them to the right. Now, they knew this robot was an utterly useless guide. It couldn't even take them to the room in the first place. So what percentage of these bright university students at Georgia Tech, what percentage of them chose to follow the crazy robot instead of following their own experience, which was to go back the way they came, following the emergency exit sign? 100%. 100% of the students followed the robot. And it was only when it entered this darkened room full of furniture that they realized that it was a hopeless robot, and they made their way out to safety. So I think what that demonstrates is computers are smart enough now. They are able to understand complex legal documents, and that we do trust technology even more so than necessarily we trust ourselves. And that's trust with our lives. That's trust in a corridor filled with smoke. So I think we're at a point of inflection now where people they are ready for legal technology and law tech to embrace the way in which legal services are delivered. So I wanted, if I may, to give you a few predictions for the direction of travel, for where we're going. The first one is that legal advice will increasingly go online. Now, as a result of the pandemic, so much now has gone online, so you may not think of this as much of a prediction. But if one looks at the research done by the Hague Institute for Innovation of Law called Elephant in the Courtroom, 95% of people around the world with a serious legal issue, that's one that keeps them awake at night, 95% of people with a serious legal issue do not go to court. They do not use the institution set up to help them because they feel it's only for the elite, for the rich, for the powerful. They don't believe the system is set up for them. More concerningly, perhaps you might say, is that 84% of those people don't even go and see a lawyer because they don't trust lawyers, they don't like lawyers, they think lawyers add complexity, they think lawyers add cost, they think there has to be a better way of resolving their problem. Now, if that was the medical system, could you imagine a scenario in society where people are kept awake at night in pain and 95% of them choose not to go to hospital, and only 16% want to go and see a doctor because they just don't have faith in the profession? We would say that's a failing system. And one other metric that came out of that research, of the people that choose to go to court, 70% finish the experience feeling unhappy. So it's like having a medical system in a country where 95% of people kept awake at pain don't want to use the hospitals, 84% don't want to even see a doctor, and of the ones that go to hospital, 70% of them come out feeling it was a terrible experience. That has to be a failing system. So what people were asked were, what would you want from a legal system? What would you want from society to help you with legal problems? And the answer was interesting. They said, first of all, I want someone to tell me if my feelings are right. Should I be angry? Should I feel that someone has done something wrong to me? So they want some guidance on whether their feelings are correct. Are they right to be angry? Are they right to feel wronged, if you will? And the second thing is they want society to provide them a platform to help them solve the problem. Not to fight the problem, not an adversarial process, not one that they have to appoint lawyers, not one where they have to stand symmetrically in a courtroom, even a virtual courtroom, and fight it out. No, actually what they want is a technology to help them solve problems. So my prediction is that the adversarial system will continue to be a service to the minority, but that the private sector most likely will start to fill that gap, that justice chasm, for people who currently have no access to justice or certainly aren't inclined to use the system. And the online platform will do two things. It will tell people if they're right, so give them some basic legal advice at low or no cost. and it will provide a platform to help them solve their problem rather than to fight their problem. And we're already seeing the rise of these systems, be it the system that Colin Rule developed for eBay and PayPal, through to the system that Alibaba is using now, which is the gamification of dispute resolution, through to the platforms developed by Mark Deutsch in the US, People Claim, Rhubarb, and the like. We're already seeing this ability to have the wisdom of the crowd, to monetize and to gamify justice, having a much greater impact on helping people understand, are they right to feel that there's a problem, and will someone help us? And I think that trend will continue. The second prediction is the rise of China. China at the moment is filing more blockchain applications or patents rather than America. It's certainly on the rise in so many areas of technology. And if one looks at the work of the Supreme People's Court in terms of court tech, in terms of understanding court systems and delivering justice, be it in the court of the internet in Hangzhou or elsewhere, we certainly can see that China is on the rise. And I suspect that China will be at the forefront of legal technology and law tech. To some extent, we will see them being fended off, I imagine, because I think there is some concern from some countries in the West about the rise of China, and I think there's a real sense that Chinese technology should be held back. There's perhaps reason for that. I'm not too sure what it is, but there is, I think, a concern there. But one cannot stop the rise of the technology which China's developing. So I think more and more on the legal tech side, we're going to be led out of patents and design from China, more so than we will from the West. And I think the third element is going to be the increasing investment into legal technology. So we're already starting to see exponential growth, just as we saw with fintech. If you remember, when fintech started, very little investment, the banks were against it. There really wasn't much to it, but it exploded, and it exploded really when the regulator started to say to the financial institutions, stop doing what you've always done and start to think about how you can deliver a better, more secure service at a lower cost to the customer. So the regulator started to put pressure on institutions to do the right thing by their customers. And I think the same will happen with law tech. I mean, regulators around the world for lawyers tend to be lawyers. And so you do have the sort of poacher and gamekeeper situation. But I think over time, we'll start to see regulators, one, that are willing to license and regulate AI-based technology to deliver legal advice and to deliver legal solutions. I think, as we've seen, for example, in the UK, I think equally we're going to see regulators putting increasing pressure on law firms to not pass on their inefficiency to the clients, that is, to deliver legal advice in the most effective way. And I always go back to, if you had a lawyer who insisted on typing their advice and charging the client to type a letter in the old-fashioned way, and the client complained that it shouldn't take that long to produce a letter, I think we'd be fairly comfortable that the community would say, well, yes, it's you chose as a lawyer to adopt an inefficient process to produce the letter. Why are you passing that cost on to your client? And if you follow me on that, how many other inefficient processes are there that law firms operate? The structure of a law firm is inefficient. The hourly rate is inefficient. Doesn't align with the client's interests, many would argue. So as we start to see greater regulatory pressure, I think law firms will continue to need to adapt to deliver greater and more efficient service. If they could buy the Law Geeks algorithm, which is more accurate for clients and determines in 26 seconds what takes lawyers an hour and a half, then the law firm has no incentive to take that technology on unless required either by the client or the regulator. So I think we're going to see real exponential growth in investment in legal technology as regulators want it, lawyers to behave differently and not pass on efficiency, as clients get more demanding. I think we will definitely see a significant investment in legal technology, and that we're seeing year in, year out. The numbers are growing exponentially. So those are my predictions: the rise of China, the rise of online, private sector, legal advice, and then the rise of investment in legal technology. But what does that mean? Does that mean that robots are going to replace lawyers? Does that mean that lawyers and judges are out of a job? Does that mean that AI will be the future? Well, I don't think so, no. And there is actually a website, willrobotstakemyjob.com. And if you go on there, it thinks that there's only a 4% chance that lawyers will be replaced by AI and robots. It seems to suggest that we're totally safe. And I think there's an element of that. You know, I think there is an element that lawyers and doctors are not going to be outdone by computers. However, I think it is fair to say that although AI and legal technology will not automate the legal profession out of existence, I do think that lawyers and law firms that embrace AI and legal technology, that incorporate it into the law firm's DNA, that pass on the efficiency that AI and legal tech provide, but at the same time maintain those strong client relationships, those trusting client relationships. I think that those law firms will do far better and possibly make extinct law firms and lawyers that do not embrace AI and legal technology. So whilst I don't think the future is bleak for the legal profession, not at all, I think we do have to redefine. I think we do have to embrace. I think we do have to understand that AI and legal technology will deliver a better client experience, a more effective client experience, a more efficient client experience. And if our first duty is to the system, to the legal system that we support, and to the clients that we look after, then I think every law firm and every lawyer also has a duty to incorporate AI and legal technology into their practice. And society has an obligation to incorporate AI and legal technology into the way in which law and justice is delivered. Thank you very much.